Hello, and welcome to the Counselor Complete OMS overview on the claims remittance feature. In this tutorial, we're going to show the activation and utilization of the claims remittance tool. Now, a quick definition here. When we're talking about claims remittance, we're talking about the information that flows back from the payer after a claim has been submitted. So just kind of talk through that whole path. You'd create the claim in Counselor. That claim goes off to the clearinghouse. That clearinghouse then sends it to the payer who adjudicates it and sends information back. The information that flows back goes to the clearinghouse and then goes on to Counselor. Now, there's different names for the information that flows back from the payer, from the insurance company, most commonly referred to as an EOB, also an ERA, an 835 file is also another name for it. So there are different ways it's described. I may use different ones throughout this, or the claims remittance file. Point being is it's information that includes the payments and adjustments that are coming from the payer back into Counselor. So the focus here is to save you a really significant amount of time, meaning you don't have to enter that information manually. All right, so we're going to show these setup first. We're going to begin by clicking under Administration in the top menu bar, and then we'll select Clinic List. Go ahead and select a clinic that you wish to edit, and then click on the Financials tab. In the Financials tab, go ahead and look for the ClaimMD Settings option. All right, now in this case, this account has already been set up, but yours would look like this when you're first setting it up. Okay, go ahead and click this option, and you'll see there are three options that you can select that will autofill as you are pulling this claim remittance, this EOB, ERA information back into Counselor, and that is setting the payer type. Typically, you leave this as insurance, but you can decide whatever you wish. This is going to be based on your settings. So what I'm showing you here is not going to be consistent with what you see in your account. So, but like I said, most consistently, you'll want this to be just insurance. It can be changed later on, of course. Adjustment type, same idea. You can choose what you'd like there. The adjustment item, once again, this is all going to reflect your specific options in your line item lists and the different settings beyond there. So point being is go ahead and pick what you like, click close, and then very importantly, click save. That will lock in those changes, and now that first clinic is ready to go. If you have additional clinics, go ahead and edit those and get them activated as well. So that's a pretty quick process there for getting your account activated. And what that does is it does enable then, once again, claims remittance information to flow back into Counselor. Okay. Now, once claim information does flow back into Counselor, you can locate it in two places. First off, right from the dashboard, there is a dashboard widget called Claims Remittance or Claim Remittance. This is where you can see any claims that are flowing back into Counselor. I should say adjudicated claims that are flowing back into Counselor, and then you can pick your time range, you can pick your status, right, and see what's going on. Now, in this case, we can see here's a claim that has flowed back into the system and is not able to be linked up to an invoice. And I'll explain what that means in just a moment here. Then we see another one here that did link to an invoice. And so we can actually, for both these, obviously we can bring open the details, which shows us a lot of information about the claim itself, the patient, the various details, the charges, right? As well as the code. So now we can see what happened with that claim. And this is the kind of information, once again, you see in the EOB and the ERA. It's here now, right? All paperlessly, of course. And then, of course, for this, the number one here, we could go ahead, of course, and apply this. If we said, all right, this looks good, let's go ahead and apply it. Now, we're not going to do it at this point. We're going to look at the other option for viewing these claims, right? We could do it from here, but let's take that next step here and go to Business and Claim Remittance. Okay, so as you can see, this is a much more thorough screen. You can see a wider range of claims that have come through. You, of course, can narrow things, use the filters to search by specific things if you want, or at the very bottom, you can limit this to just the last 7 days if you wish, right? So totally up to you as to how you see and interact with this screen, but obviously there's a lot more information here as well. Now, if we look at the claim we were just looking at back on the dashboard here, we can see here's the one where we can bring open those same details. Right, this is just what we were looking at from the dashboard. We can jump to the invoice if we want to go straight there. We also can click on Apply. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll click on the Apply option. Now in the apply option, there's more details. We see the same information regarding the claim, but we also see more information about the invoice, what the total due, patient due, insurance due. So you get to look at that before you apply this, right? And here we can see those options. If you recall, during the setup process, there's the ability to preset, kind of pick your default for the payment payer type. You can change it on the fly, or you can leave it, right, up to you. You also have the ability to set whether or not you want to deduct the amount from the insurance responsibility. Now, if you're already doing claims in Counselor, you will likely do this the same way you always have, right, where you typically leave this to deduct from insurance responsibility. But if you have any questions about that, please let the Counselor staff know, and we can talk you through your different options there. But most commonly, this one is left checked. Patient responsibility tends to be more dependent on a claim-by-claim basis, meaning that if the patient has one insurance payer, it's being adjudicated here, obviously, then any remainder would go to patient responsibility. However, if you know the patient has a secondary insurance payer, well, then you probably wouldn't, right? Because you're expecting this claim to then go on to the secondary and likely receive another ERA, EOB regarding that secondary claim. So in this case, I'm going to leave this as checked, okay? This fourth option here gives you the ability to download the remittance. What this does is it takes the PDF that you typically get, right? You either download from your clearinghouse or they mail to you, and it will load it directly into the patient's document section. So it means you have that document with all the details stored automatically in the patient profile. Now, if you don't want that, of course, you can uncheck this, but typically this would be left checked as well. Now, as we scroll down a little bit here, we can see the two items that were in the claim. We can see the audio and we can see the TIMPs. Now, if you notice here, the service 1 and 2 did line up perfectly with this, and that's what we'd expect. But just in case you see there's a mismatch where maybe your TIMP was here and your audio was here, you can change them around. Okay, so it's a fairly unlikely scenario, but we did want to give you the opportunity that if needed, you could manually change those on the fly. All right, so for the most part, you'd bring this screen up, you give it a quick look, maybe you make an adjustment here, and that's basically it. You click Apply Charges to Invoice. Okay, so it brought us back to this main screen, but now for Sarah's claim here, we can see there's no longer an apply option, right? This has been applied. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna jump right into that invoice. And now we can see, look at the updated summary here, right? Here's the amount that's been paid by insurance. We can see that the remaining $25 has been shifted to patient due because we selected that option. If we look at the line items, we'll see now that there are adjustments in place, right? One for the audio, one for the TIMPs. So once again, this whole process replaces the need for you to have to manually enter adjustments as well as payments. So now we can see the specific payments, and these payments have been applied to the specific line items. They've been linked up behind the scenes, so later on you can see what was paid by what method, right? So at this point now, there's just $25 left due. This, of course, be from the patient, and so we go about collecting that as we normally do. But we can see the insurance amount is now 0. Okay, so the process for identifying claims remittances have come back. Very simple. You can do so from the dashboard as well as from the claims remittance tool. And in both places, you can view the information and you can apply it directly to an invoice. Now, there are instances, like I showed you from the dashboard, where there isn't a match. Now, this is also fairly uncommon, but can happen. This tends to be based on the payer. Certain insurance companies do not send back enough information to enable Counselor to link up the original claim with the remittance that has come back. Okay, not a huge deal. Hopefully you see this very infrequently. You may find that a certain payer it always happens with, right? And that shows you it's just that's how they send the data back. And most payers will be just fine, right? But in this case, we're going to say, okay, didn't match up. We're going to click the assign option. Now in this case, what you do is you would say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pick the provider. You can pick your range, and then you can find invoices that match that, right? So you know the patient's name. It's already going to search on Nina's profile, and you can find matching invoices. You say, okay, yep, that's the one I'm looking for. Click on it, and now you apply. So it's just one more step to kind of marry up the claims remittance you got back with the claim that had been sent out, you know, the invoice that had been used to create the claim, I should say. You can marry those up very, very easily and then apply the details. Okay, now if you happen to find one that for some reason you can't apply, it doesn't belong, you don't want to, maybe you're doing a manual applying it, right? You're just saying, hey, we don't want to use the automated system. Um, you can always disregard. Once again, this is going to be a fairly uncommon scenario, but the tool is there if you ever need it. And if you do disregard it, what you'll see is it will set it as disregard. So it basically says, okay, we know it's here. You can still see the details anytime, but we didn't apply it, right? That's just there for your reference. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead then and look at one other option within this, and this is provider adjustments. Now, this once again, hopefully is fairly uncommon, but this is a scenario where an insurance payer essentially claws back some money, right? Where they say, maybe we overpaid you 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago, sometimes it happens, right? Or there was some issue and they're going to claw back money. So what they do is they issue a provider adjustment. Now that adjustment is not necessarily specific to a claim, and so it can be a little tricky. You can't like apply it back to the claim from 2 years ago. But what this feature does is it allows you to see that, right? So at a bare minimum, you're alerted, you know what happened, and then you can apply that. There's different ways to apply that in the system. Typically, you want to make sure that's okay on the accounting side of things as well. So probably talk to your accountant. How do we handle these scenarios? This is something that Counselor doesn't directly advise you on, but this is something where it gives you the info. So once again, you have this information in digital format. You can always refer back to it later on and then apply that adjustment as needed based on probably guidance from your accountant. Okay. So altogether, these tools are designed to, once again, significantly improve and speed up and improve the accuracy of the claims remittance process, getting those adjustments and payments in place. If you have any questions about any of these steps, please give us a call, email us, live chat us. We are always happy to help. Thank you very much for joining us for the Counselor Complete overview of the claims remittance tool.